There are moments in life when everything around you goes quiet, not because the world has stopped moving, but because your heart has grown tired of noise. You wake up, go through the same motions, speak to the same people, pray the same prayers, and yet something inside you feels unfinished. Not broken, not hopeless, just unfinished. And in those quiet moments, when you sit with your thoughts longer than you planned to, you begin to realize that waiting can feel heavier than suffering. Pain at least announces itself. Waiting is silent. Waiting doesn't scream. It whispers. It whispers questions like, am I seen? Am I forgotten? Did I miss something God wanted me to do? If you've ever carried those questions into your prayer time, you're not weak. You're human. I want to speak to you today as someone who understands that space, not as someone standing above you, but as someone who has sat on the same floor with the same unanswered thoughts, asking God to make sense of timing that doesn't match desire. There is a passage in Scripture that says hope deferred can make the heart sick, and that verse doesn't condemn the heart for getting tired. It simply names the experience. God never shames a weary heart. One of the quiet truths we often overlook is that God does not rush relational work. From the very beginning, He formed Adam completely before bringing Eve into the picture. Not because Eve was an afterthought, but because preparation matters when union is involved. Love that lasts is rarely rushed into existence. You may feel like your life has been on pause, but heaven doesn't operate on the same clock you do. What feels like delay to you often looks like alignment to God. And alignment is slow because it involves many moving parts. Not just you, not just another person, but habits, wounds, beliefs, fears, and faith that must be handled gently, not hurried. Some seasons aren't about adding something new to your life. They are about strengthening what already exists within you. You see, God is far more concerned with who you are becoming than what you are waiting for. And that's not because the thing you're waiting for doesn't matter. Bree, it's because who you are becoming will determine how you carry what you receive. There is a wisdom in Proverbs that says guard your heart, because everything you do flows from it. That verse doesn't suggest closing your heart. It suggests tending to it. A guarded heart is not a hardened one, it's a healed one. Sometimes God allows waiting because rushing love into an unhealed heart can turn blessing into burden. And God is not in the business of giving gifts that crush the soul instead of nourishing it. I know it can feel personal, like God is saying no when all you've heard is silence. But silence from God is not absence. Silence is often God working quietly, out of sight, below the surface, where roots grow. Jesus himself lived 30 years in obscurity before stepping into public ministry. 30 years. Most of his life was not spent being seen, but being shaped. And if the Son of God was not rushed into his purpose, why do we believe our story must unfold quickly to be valid? You are not behind. You are not late. You are not forgotten. You are in process. And process is uncomfortable because it requires trust without proof. Faith at its core is not believing God can do something. It's trusting God when He hasn't done it yet. There is a story in Scripture where Jacob works for 7 years for the woman he loves. And the text says those years felt like only days to him because of his love. There are things God teaches you in solitude that cannot be learned in partnership. There are prayers you can only pray honestly when no one else is listening. There are strengths you only discover when you stop leaning on someone else's presence to feel whole. The Apostle Paul once wrote that God's power is made perfect in weakness, not because weakness is ideal, but because it creates space for grace. Waiting seasons stretch you, not to harm you, but to make room for patience, room for discernment, room for a deeper understanding of love that is not built on need alone. Sometimes what we call loneliness is actually God inviting us into intimacy with Him before intimacy with another person. Not to replace human connection, but to anchor it. A love rooted in God does not collapse under pressure. If you've ever noticed patterns in past relationships that left you drained, unseen, or small, this season may be about breaking those cycles. God is gentle, but He is thorough. He doesn't just remove the person, He addresses the pattern. And patterns don't change overnight. They change through awareness, through prayer, through choosing differently even when it feels unfamiliar. There is a verse that reminds us that God gives good gifts to His children. Not flashy gifts, not rushed gifts, good ones. And goodness often looks quieter than we expect. It looks like peace instead of excitement, stability instead of intensity, consistency instead of unpredictability. If your heart has learned to equate chaos with passion, God may be rewiring your understanding of love. That takes time. And while you wait, there may be another heart learning the same lessons from a different angle. Not because the universe is conspiring, but because God works relationally, not randomly. He sees both stories. He sees the parts you don't talk about, the prayers whispered at night, the fears you don't post. Nothing is wasted in His hands. Even disappointment becomes instruction when surrendered to God. There is a psalm that says God is close to the brokenhearted. And that verse doesn't promise immediate repair. It promises presence. Sometimes presence is the miracle. Being held by God when answers are absent is what keeps the heart soft instead of bitter. If you've been tempted to give up hope altogether, not loudly, but quietly, that's understandable. Hope is risky, but Scripture doesn't tell us to kill hope. It tells us to anchor it. Anchor it in God, not outcomes. Anchor it in trust, not timelines. When your hope is anchored in God, it doesn't disappear when plans change. It adjusts. You are allowed to desire companionship without idolizing it. You are allowed to want love without believing your life is incomplete without it. Even Jesus, fully human, experienced longing, yet remained whole. Wholeness does not come from being chosen by another person. It comes from knowing you are already chosen by God. That truth doesn't remove desire. It stabilizes it. And stability is what allows love to be given freely instead of desperately. If you've ever felt pressure to rush your story because everyone else seems ahead, remember this: comparison distorts timing. God never compares your journey to someone else's. He is far more interested in faithfulness than speed. There is a quiet strength in patience that the world rarely celebrates, but Scripture honors it deeply. It says those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength. not lose it, renew it. Waiting when done with God, break does not drain you, it deepens you. And depth matters in relationships. Surface-level connections are easy to find. Depth is formed in seasons, where you are forced to listen more than speak, reflect more than react, pray more than plan. If you've been growing in discernment, learning to recognize peace instead of adrenaline is not accidental. God is teaching you how to recognize what is safe. Love should feel safe, not boring, not dull, but safe enough to rest. The Bible describes love as patient, kind, and enduring. Those words are quiet words. They don't shout. They don't demand. They stay. If you've been healing from wounds that taught you love must be earned, this season may be God reminding you that grace comes first. You don't have to prove your worth. You don't have to perform faith. You are already known. And P. God knows the desires you've buried because they felt too heavy to carry anymore. P. He knows the prayers you stopped praying because you didn't want to be disappointed again. P. He does not despise your honesty. In fact, honesty is where real faith begins. Faith is not pretending everything is fine. Faith is bringing what is broken into God's presence and trusting Him not to turn away. P. If you've been learning to trust God with your heart again, slowly, carefully, that matters. P. God is patient. With your pace. He doesn't rush healing, because rushed healing doesn't last. And while you may not see the full picture, you are not walking blindly. You are walking with God. That is enough for today. There will be days when waiting feels lighter, and days when it feels unbearable. Both are allowed. God is not intimidated by your questions. He invites them. Scripture is full of people who questioned God and were still loved deeply. Doubt does not disqualify you. It humanizes you. If you've been using this season to become more honest, more grounded, more compassionate, you are not standing still. You are growing in ways that will one day make sense. And even if you never understand every reason, trust does not require full understanding. It requires surrender. Surrender is not giving up. It is letting go of control. And control is often what exhausts us most. As you continue forward, one day at a time, know that God is not distant from your story. He walks with you in it. He holds the threads you cannot see. And when the time is right, whatever He brings into your life will meet you as you are then, not as you were before this season shaped you. Until that day, your life is not on pause. It is being lived, fully, intentionally, with God. If this reflection has spoken to your heart, you're welcome to walk with us here on Angels Decode channel, where we explore faith, patience, and healing together, without pressure or performance. If you feel led, you can leave a word of encouragement for someone else reading this, or share it with a person who may need quiet reassurance today. And as you go, may you carry peace instead of urgency, gratitude instead of fear, and trust instead of striving. God is faithful, and you are not alone. Not alone. Before you move on with your day, I want you to take a slow breath here, not to mark an ending, but to honor where you are right now. Because endings in faith are rarely conclusions. They are rests. Moments where God invites you to sit instead of striving, to trust instead of reaching, to believe without demanding proof. You only need to leave with peace enough for the next step. That is how God often leads us. Not by revealing the whole road, but by lighting the ground beneath our feet. If your heart has been carrying quiet questions, questions you don't even say out loud anymore, know this: God hears prayers that never become words. He understands the sighs, the pauses, the moments when all you can say is, "Lord, you know." And He does know. There is a tenderness in how God handles waiting hearts. He does not yank you forward. He does not shame you for slowing down. He walks at your pace. If you have learned anything in this season, it may be this: that strength is not always loud, and faith is not always confident. Sometimes faith looks like showing up again tomorrow, still unsure, still open, still willing to trust God with something that matters deeply to you. That kind of faith is precious. Scripture reminds us that God finishes what He begins, not what we rush, not what we force, but what He authors. Your story is authored by God, not edited by fear, not controlled by comparison, not delayed by mistake, authored by God. And authors do not abandon their work midway. So as you leave this reflection, do not measure your life by what has not arrived yet. Measure it by the growth you can now see, by the boundaries you didn't have before, by the peace that no longer feels foreign, by the clarity that replaced confusion. Those are signs of God's hand at work, even now. If there are days when your heart aches unexpectedly, when longing returns without warning, do not interpret that as failure. Love was never meant to be shut down, only anchored. Let your longing become prayer, not pressure. Let it draw you closer to God, not further into self-doubt. The Bible teaches us that God is near to those who wait on Him, not because waiting earns His presence, but because waiting teaches us to notice it. You may discover one day that the most meaningful part of this season was not what eventually changed, but who you became while trusting God through it. And that version of you will be able to love more freely, more wisely, more honestly. As you go forward, gratitude gently in your heart. Gratitude for what you have survived. Gratitude for what you have learned. Gratitude for a God who did not abandon you in uncertainty. There is no rush here, no pressure to figure everything out tonight. Just trust, just rest, just one faithful step at a time. And if this message has given you even a moment of peace, you are always welcome here at Angels Decode Channel, a quiet place for reflection, healing, and faith, for real people walking real journeys. If you feel moved, leave a word of hope for someone else, or share this with a heart that may need reassurance today. But above all, carry this with you. God is not late. You are not forgotten, and what is meant to meet you will recognize the person you are becoming. Go gently, go faithfully, go with trust. God is with you.